One of the things that we've got to now, we've hit that point, haven't we, where we have to understand business logic and understanding the difference between business logic and ETL and why we can't treat the two the same and why there are always those conflicts that are going to arise. We've never known a project where that hasn't happened. So let's get this out of the way now. Let's have a discussion and let's see what you guys think. Hi, my name's Ross, the creator and founder of Geordie Consulting and Geordie Intelligence, the YouTube channel you're watching right now. Before we go any further, why don't you take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment, let me know where your background is, what you're hoping to get from us. Okay? And also, don't forget, tell me what you think of the channel. Are we doing it? Are we hitting the points that you need to see? Is there things we're missing? Do you want more detail in an area? Do you want less detail? All of these things help us shape our content to meet your requirements. So here we are in our main app. Now this is something which happens. So what we've done, if you think, is we're pulling through from our source system. The data comes straight through. That is ETL processing. ETL will pull things through to meet the standards that are expected. Those could be the global standards of, in terms of building a data model, what goes through. Those could be industry-specific standards in terms of how do we support metrics that we know are industry recommended. Then you're also going to have this third class, and this is the ones that are often most problematic. These are business logic questions, and business logic comes in two forms. You've got the first one, which is kind of data anomalies. So in terms of this one, this is one where we're looking at our Park Run report. Those of you who've looked at it in the past, we've already fixed it, so that'll be the most important things. We're not flagging somebody and saying, terrible. But if you looked at the people in our milestones area, you would have seen that we had somebody in the 600% area. Now, after fixing it, we see the highest one we've got is this 102%. Okay, now, 102% maximum age grade percentages, it's not as clear cut as you would think. Age grade percentages are based on a mathematical model to say, well, this is what is expected to be the absolute maximum time a person of this age can do. And it's this age and gender. And it's great because it allows you to compare yourself with other people. So what we've done is to try and future-proof it, because obviously people are getting faster. We see this with world records coming down, and we're not going to go back and restate what the age grades are for everybody. So presumably the age grades will increase, and people will then go to 102, 103, 104%. So I said, let's be sensible. So we said if it's over 150%, it's an invalid age grade percentage. That's what we're doing. I know we could argue the toss, couldn't we? We say, well, yeah, no, whatever. Okay, 150% is where I've said for now. We need to also be aware that we're pulling straight in from the system. We're not trying to manipulate the data. And the worst thing that can happen is if we do something and manipulate the data, is it going to suddenly disappear? Or are things going to happen that people are crossing a threshold and those are going to disappear, which give us an incorrect evaluation? So we need to pad it out somehow, don't we? So 150% was the logic that I have chosen to use, business logic. What that means is that throughout, as part of the ETL process, and this is where the business logic versus ETL question becomes difficult, because the business has to provide that information to whoever is building the ETL scripting or building those ETL scripts so that that business logic can be folded in. It has to then work. And we also have to have a record of it because it's a non-standard transformation of the data. So we've got a couple of things with this, okay? So 600%, we could all agree, that's definitely wrong. There's no way someone's going to have run 600% of it. And we can see what it was. So if we come across to here, sorry, I just did a screenshot, so I've copied the person's name out. See this lady, it was 665%, the age grade. So we've got a definite issue. The next highest one was just under 80%. So we know that's definitely not right. Okay, we could take a guess, a 100-plus-year-old running 30 minutes. Something's definitely not right. I think we've discussed it with a few people. It's odds on this person has put a 19-something date of birth when their date of birth is 2000 and something. So we've got an issue. So it's a data entry issue. Is it one? But it's one we invariably have to fix on the reporting side. And these are remarkably common. From this kind of thing to people using invoicing systems for testing, which is then, we do a test ticket that goes through every week or every quarter, or I was testing it with somebody. We need to make sure we've got ways of flagging and removing those. And those are always going to be business specific. The rules that you have for how your clients or your staff, are going to use your system are kind of yours. In terms of with Parkrun, there is the ongoing issue that nobody validates the data that gets put in here. So is it legitimate to say this is right or wrong? No, we can, if I chose to lie about my age, I chose to lie about my age. If I mistakenly put in the wrong date of birth, mistakenly put in the wrong date of birth, no one knows. No one's going to check. Okay? So it's only me I'm fooling, if that makes sense. Okay? As to this, I'm not going to quantify, guess, anything like that. So if we go to a nice blank workbook, and again, this is where Power BI really shines, because I'm not having to go and say to somebody, can you please present this data to me? Go and find out what those max age grades are. Okay, so we can get the connections to my semantic models. I'm going to choose to insert a pivot table from here. It will ask me to authenticate, as it does. I'll say, yep, I'm me. Okay. Fortunately, I know we actually have a max age grade percentage. So I'm going to click on max age grade. Okay. We can see what we've got. Then we can choose to go to, let's do event. Let's find tracked events, isn't it? Tracked events, let's put in local authority and event name, and then in calendar, let's bring in, let's bring in year and month. Okay, and then let's collapse those. Okay, so straight away, this didn't take long, did it? We've built something that's going to enable us to actually look and see. We could choose to put on conditional formatting, couldn't we, to make it easier for us to even check and see. Color scale. Okay, so we can see, right, we've straight away it's highlighted, boom, there we go. Okay, no big surprise. So we know this is definitely way out of line. Okay, we probably look to do something different, but you can see it's easy enough to pick out here are where our problems lie. Okay, so we know roughly where it is. We can see it's in Gateshead. What we can do as well then, because we know it's 2025, is we can expand 2025 and we can see it happened in August. Okay, so we can actually go through. We could then go to the Parkrun data and have a look at it. So I've gone there, I've had a look already. We know it's definitely an issue in the data, and it's far out of band. If we look at these here, if we exclude everything else and we look down at our average for the maximum, average of the maximum, 95%. So we've got one there, 99%. Okay, got one 103%, which is good, isn't it? So we can see, we understand what's happening. So we're getting to 102s, we're getting some of these coming through. So we would then use that as part of how we would build our data set together. So we would then be putting everything together to know what we need to see and how we want it to appear. So this works for us, okay? And that's something we need to think. So we need to think, how do we visualize that? So what I've done, and let's open a new template file. So I've just clicked on our template from my start menu. Okay, so we're going to create a new Power BI record from here. And what I've done is this, and let me know what you think. Does this make sense, or is this a bit silly? So when I was thinking about where we would record that information, I thought if we put it in something which is going to be visual in our data dictionary, that to me makes sense. So if we pick our schema here, we can scroll down and we can see I've got age grade validation. Okay, so less than 150%, you must make sure that you add a filter for age grade calculations to remove not true values. So values that are false, okay? What you say, okay? And we can see it's true, true, false. It's the format string, so it's basically it's true or false. So what we'll do is let's have a look at the measures. So we click on the measures now, and we can come down. I really should put a search on here, shouldn't I? And we can do that. Max age grade, here we go, okay? So we've changed this to now be a calculate. So it used to just be max participation age grade. Now we're doing calculate a max participation age grade where age grade equals true, okay, or AG valid equals true. So what we've got is we've got a column that's always going to contain the data, including the invalid values, but we're excluding those invalid values from a calculation that we're doing now. And that way we've preserved the integrity of the data set. We haven't ever removed anything. So if something goes through and it's funky, somebody does something and it's funky, we know this is here. This is clearly described that we've got something in here. There's something there. Inside the schema table, I've got age grade is only valid if AG valid equals true. Okay, so again, so we've got valid points. It's explained multiple times. We're using these descriptions and we're using our data dictionary to explain what we've done. So it's a good place to capture it, isn't it? And it works very well and it's not difficult to do. But what happens when we step beyond that, right? And you sort of... Now, one of the things that we've discussed, or that we did last week, was where we looked, didn't we? We looked at the economic impact. So in terms of the economic impact, if we go back to SharePoint, come to here, look at our documents, and let's go and have a look here at our economic impact. What we were doing was we were basing that on an assumption, weren't we? So we've got some clear assumptions in terms of the percentage of first-timers. But the reality is that this is the first step, isn't it, on a journey of segmentation. And segmentation is something which is always business logic. How does that apply? What are we doing? And there's always going to be that, there is very much that finger in the air around segmentation. Even if you say we've done it fully mathematically, those mathematical boundaries, finger in the air. Okay, should we have 7 segments or 6 segments? Should we have 2 or 10? The relevance of them, the way you're going to target stuff, there's all sorts around it. It is never as clear cut. You know, we could say we're going to do 20 and we're going to pick 3 of those segments as key ones that we're going to market towards. There are things like that that we would do, but we've, again, finger in the air somewhere along the right lines of it. Okay. So with this, I came up with this idea of roughly what should it be? Okay, and what I thought was, if we looked here, okay, so from our registered finishers, and we took this view, okay, we're always going to have X percentage of registered finishers who are going to be first timers, because that's just a label on the event finished on their finish record. If we go back to have a look and see. So if we have a look at our latest results here for Jasmine Dean, what we're doing is we're saying, here, this is a first timer, this is just a regular runner who's just had a regular run, and here's a PB. So we've got kind of 3 core classifications, okay? But is Elias a tourist? Is he not a tourist? He's a first timer, but is he a tourist? Is he not a tourist? That's the question, okay? So what should we do? Right. So with that in mind, as I say, and with the idea of kind of roughly building something that would kind of work, let's get the report over here again. Okay. I came up with this. Okay. So our first timers are the ones that we're most interested in, because those are going to be the ones which would be probably spending the most, in inverted commas. But of those, we thought, well, a certain number of them are going to be kind of local, new first-timers, kind of actual genuine first-timers, probably less than 40%. But I thought, well, let's go, local, I'm in the area, I'm doing something else. So I've said 40%. We could tweak any of these numbers, and this would be part of what we would do as part of our process of dialing this in. Then we've got near, where people are coming, well, we've traveled a little bit to get there, but it's not an overnight, it's just a little bit more. Okay, and they're going to probably, I'll get a breakfast afterwards, or I'll do something like that. So, they're going to spend a bit more, I would have thought. Okay, I would have guessed. And again, remember, this is all supposition. This is all based on guesses, isn't it? Okay, and what we want to get to is that understanding of how do we get to a full number that we can not be wedded to, but that we can be comfortable with, that we've done some due diligence to kind of get something built for that. And then lastly, we've got the proper true tourists who are, say in the top 20% of first timers maybe. They might spend £50 each, okay? Then you've got a PB. I've got a PB. You're more likely to treat yourself, aren't you? I'm going to get something, get myself a sandwich, get myself a cake. I know a lot of people like running for cake. I've done the run, really good. I'm going to get a cake. So, that goes up. So we're saying, does that sound sensible? But equally, a lot of people are going, well, I've got a PB, great, not going to get anything. So £5 felt about right. Then we're going to have like the rest. And of those, we're going to say, well, 70% are probably just going to go, I've finished it, I'm just going to go home. I'm not going to get anything, I'm just going to go home. Okay, so it's zero economic impact. Got the social people who, hey, we come together, I actually meet people, we have a coffee afterwards, might go and get breakfast, things like that. So we're going to say they're going to spend £5, say. Okay. And then lastly, we've got the celebration. So people going out to celebrate. It's my birthday, it's, so-and-so's birthday, we've all come together, it's just something. So £10, okay? So we've kind of got this idea, haven't we? We can kind of segment out the whole field. And of course, if we were doing that, what we would look to do, if you remember the calculation we wrote last week, roughly this, okay, the economic impact. So we've got the person spent. We would go through and we would build one of these for each area, okay? So we would always come through and build that calculation. Okay, they wouldn't all be based on registered finishers, because registered finishers is well, we could base it on registered finishers, couldn't we? But anyway, okay. So we've got that. We can keep doing those and we can build those up so we've got that full set of segments. But where we record that information is the question. Because the reality is it would all depend on actually what the final solution is going to be. So if we were to build a table for this, for example, we could put it in the table description. So we've got, this is what it is, this is how it's all going to be stored. And there is a good case to say we should build a table for this or for these in the future. And if we do that, then we can put in the description the mindset behind it. And it becomes relevant that we can do all that and that we think about where we're going to store all this. So we haven't done anything yet with it, and it's going to take a while, I think, before we will do anything with it. But I wanted to sow the seed that we need to consider where those are going to go and how it's all going to stitch together so that we've got that documentation. And most importantly, so that we can put something in to our data dictionary so everyone can see these are the business logic questions or updates that we've put in. Yeah? So what do you reckon? Business logic is something that trips up almost every data project that we've worked on, okay? And it's not a case of saying this person's in the wrong, that team's in the wrong. It's a case of recognizing business logic is specific to that project. It is specific to that data process. It is not something that will be driven by wider scale things. If we're doing a normal ETL project, building the normal DAX measures that we've got, invariably 9 times out of 10, most of them will be based on, these are the industry standards that we use. This is the measure that we've got here that we need to then bring in. We will bring it in, no problem. This is the structure that we build in terms of the tables to support that way of working. All of that is normal. Okay, a data professional come through, they will do that. Data is data, no questions. The challenge is always getting that information through for the business logic so that the nuances of that business process within that organization come through appropriately. It could be as simple as saying, oh, we've got our core line of business invoicing tool where we've got, because of what it is, we've got multiple entries for the same client, for example. Many times you see that over time, the client's changed names or they've moved or they've done something like that. You've ended up with 2 or 3 different things that are all now actually the same client. But depending on what they're dealing with or which contract in specific they're dealing with, potentially those need to be kept separate. But when you come to looking at your macro, what's the value of that client? You want to pull that together. You know, what's the client bought, what's sold? You kind of want to pull it together. So you then have to use business logic to bring those groups, to those disparate records into one record. But they're never going to be in the source system. So we have to have ways, and there's no hard or fast rule of doing it. If you want to see how to fix that one, actually, I'd recommend you go and look at one of our videos, and I'll put a link up there to go and have a look at one we've done for the New York water tower data set, where we had the same thing, where we've got the same lab that's used or the same water inspection company, but because it's case sensitive or they've just misspelt it, you've got potentially for some of them, you've got hundreds of different entries. And what we've done is we used an Excel spreadsheet that pulls it together. It's really simple, really intuitive, and works very easily for a lot of people. So have a look. Okay. But the goal with this is always, we need to make sure those business logic questions get fed back in, but also that those business logic tweaks are transparent to everybody. Because the worst thing that can happen is where your business logic removes big chunks of data and you don't then communicate that back. And then later on, analysis becomes flawed and is fundamentally wrong. And that's then where you've got a big issue. So I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know down below what you think of this. And if this is something that you've seen, if you've tackled it in a different way to what we've suggested, let me know. For now though, stay safe, take care. Ta-da.